owned audience really seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds like it really couldn't have honed in any better on the audience that you were looking to target.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we wanted that silly, over the top, late night gamer kind of audience. So it just worked out super well, and we were really grateful for their help getting the info out. And they donated, I think, at the highest tier of the Kickstarter. So they were super cool.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seemed like it was a little bit of a couple of things for that. Is like you're in the right place at the right time, but also, I think because of you guys kind of were very intentional with the game and the style and the tone and everything else, that it's like those. It made sense that those things were able to line up. It wasn't just like it wasn't completely, out of the stratosphere or anything like that.
Right. I think there's an element of luck to anything. And I think there was a big element of luck to this, that someone happened to just stumble upon it. But they probably more likely stumbled upon it because of, all these other factors. It, like you said, it fits with a certain audience that they're looking for. We had Kickstarter liked the project, a bunch of other things. So yeah, just for whatever reason, it had good SEO or something. I don't know, but someone caught wind.
Nice. Now, okay, so you had that. That definitely helped out a lot. But there's obviously challenges that you guys were facing too during the campaign, really trying to stand out and everything. Like, what were some of those challenges that you guys had?
Oh, the biggest challenge, I think, is you want to get press, and you work really hard to try to hone all this messaging for all these different members of the press to try to, be as specific as possible to catch their interest. Like if XYZ person at Destructoid and XYZ person at Kotaku really likes, these types of games, you have to try and find those people and talk to those people. So that's that's a very difficult piece, because at the time we had no idea how to approach people with game marketing. We didn't know how to write pitch emails. We didn't know how to talk to people, find other channels. Much better now, but that takes practice. So, running Kickstarter from never running Kickstarter before is a very difficult thing to do. It's almost better to help someone else out with theirs, sort of see what the challenges are, and then, take that as a learning experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, that brings up a good point too. So if that was a big challenge for you, you guys still got press coverage though. So,
oh yeah, definitely. We had Kotaku, Destructoid, but a lot of that took messaging for sure. Honing messaging.
Okay, so despite the fact that was a super a big challenge and everything, it was still at least just going through that process and just working at it. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I wish I had done in that. So many things upon reflection you wish you could do differently. If I could go back in time, I would have done a lot more of that discovery way before the Kickstarter campaign went out, versus sort of adapting on the fly and figuring out what people were interested in, what people liked as I was going, because I was probably halfway through the campaign and we'd had maybe 1 or 2 days where the numbers were really low of the number of contributors, and we were like, oh crap, what are we going to do? We got to get some more people. We got to figure this out. Press is it is a big part of it. It depends too on your Kickstarter goals. Like your goal might not be just to make the money. That's a strategy piece. It might just be that you're trying to get a lot of press, or you're trying to get you're trying to get interest from publishers or something along those lines. And, how you pursue your Kickstarter changes a lot based on those goals.
Now, so you reached out to press, you got some momentum from Denny's and stuff. I actually, prior to talking, I did look at KickTrack. Are you familiar with that site?
Oh yeah, it's a great site.
Yeah.
It was super helpful when we were doing the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of projections and stuff. We'll put it in the show notes, but it's kicktrack.com. But I noticed that too. I was seeing some of the trajectory there and stuff, but it, towards the end, I would say not necessarily right at the end, but maybe a week and a half before, you guys got some crazy momentum. Do you know what you could attribute that to, or things that you were doing?
I think that was actually around the time that we got the Denny's coverage. I could be wrong, but I feel like that was, and that was probably a big chunk of it. Was they were posting on Tumblr and tweeting, and we could sort of see where people were coming into the project, and that was a big piece. Was we saw suddenly there was a lot of social media It could also have been, again, they backed at a high tier, so like suddenly there's an influx, all those people plus them, that would add up. So I think that helps a lot.
But still, I think when I was looking at it, I was more concerned. I mean, they put stats right on top of each other. So one was being the number of backers, and then the other being the dollar value of backers.
Oh, sure.
And those seem to be like, pretty consistent. It wasn't just like one day, one backer, and then you just had this like, huge dollar amount.
Yeah, that's the weird thing too, is we noticed that with our campaign, we had a lot of higher tier backers, and we didn't have a ton of low tier backers. And part of that too might be like communities that we were part of. We know like a lot of people from Unreal Engine community were supporting us, and that was really cool. So some people like kicked in a little bit more. And I think also, I wonder too how much was, people going, oh, I don't want this to fail, or it's coming toward the end. Maybe I'll increase the amount. I don't know how much of that happens too. So it's kind of an interesting question. But yeah, we noticed like some Kickstarter campaigns, they get a lot of low tier backers, and then, some of them get more high tier. I don't know if some of ours were kind of cool, I guess. Like we had one that was get a lot of stuff in the game, which was kind of neat. So maybe that had something to do with it. But it's tough to tell.
Now, I know we're looking, this is probably maybe more, what you were just talking about is probably more common now and everything, but at that time was like, I mean, did you look at other campaigns that were going on to see like what were their tier structure like? What kind of offers did they have with those tiers?
Yeah, we did a chunk of that. We were trying to look at games that fell within our category, which is like side scrollers, kind of goofier behavior, that sort of thing. Some games were doing stuff like special physical rewards, things like statues and whatever. Yeah. We thought that might be a bad idea. So we decided not to do that. Mostly because a lot of people think like, oh, I'll just do a statue and that will be really easy to figure out later. And it's not. It takes like custom manufacturing and all sorts of stuff like that.
Logistics.
And shipping is expensive on its own. So we tried to keep the physical rewards very affordable and in the mid-range tiers. We still did charge like a little bit more for those. So like $80 range for a physical copy versus like $50 range, for example. So that helped a lot. But high tier, we mostly did like very custom stuff like secret levels for people who are backing at like really high levels.
Cool. One thing I want to go back to real quick too is when I was because it's still top of mind for me when I was asking about that boost that you had in the end and what you attributed that to, and it was likely Denny's. I also noticed that too upon launch, probably within the first like 5 days or so, you had a pretty big, huge spike come in from that. And if that's so from what you're telling me, you were doing a lot of stuff with, trying to get that press. Denny's wasn't really in the picture at all at that point. What do you think you could attribute that boost to? Just that exposure? You did mention about Kickstarter getting, what was it, giving you that label in terms of like Kickstarters to watch out for?
Projects to watch for. Do you mean when the game went on sale, or do you mean when the game?
No, when you launched your campaign.
Oh,
like within the first 5 days or so.
Probably a lot of that was. I mean, it could have been press blasting. There's so many areas that it's hard to know exactly. But we did a lot of press blasts. So at one point I was writing, oh God, I don't know. It had to be over 100 emails a day. We had press lists that we'd gained from, I know a lot of it too was we had an email list. So whenever we went to shows, we would actually collect emails from tons and tons and tons of people that were demoing the game. And then what we would do is load all those emails into a email blasting program like MailChimp or something similar, and message those people out and say, hey, the game is now on Kickstarter. If you back it, it'll be a huge help, blah, blah, blah. So that actually contributed to a lot. And I imagine some of it too is probably family and friends. Like some of it's going to be, just people that that they're like, oh, Neal's making a Kickstarter, I'll go back him. And then it's like, cool, that helps too. But I remember specifically that the MailChimp was really helpful. We went to MagFest, Music and Games Festival.
I need to go to MagFest.
MagFest is great. I think you'd like it, especially with you have a lot of audio equipment and stuff. And at MagFest, there were people playing the game all day and all night. We actually had almost a 24-hour shift going with all the people that we had with us. And what we would do is we had this tablet computer, and we would say to every single person, do you like the game? If so, would you be interested in being the first person to find out about it, and blah, blah, blah. So that was a really big help. There was another event we actually went to during the Kickstarter campaign. I think it was Otakon. So during the campaign, a couple of members of the team took over the web presence, and I was actually selling the game there at a convention, talking to people and telling them, go to the site, back it today. So we were getting that helps a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tons of people who were there were just yeah, I'll back $15, $20, $50, whatever. Yeah, these are things. It's funny that you mentioned it because I almost forgot about these, and then now I remember, and it's oh yeah, I was actually selling the game on the floor too. So it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's good that we're talking about this too, because I mean, just the title of this episode alone is how to stand out with their Kickstarter, and I think everybody at face value is thinking, oh, what strategies, what techniques, and things can you do online. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure a lot of this was from online, but a lot of it was really relationship building. And community. I mean, you said a good component, at least starting out, was that. And then there's other things that, not just from the relationships, but also being in tune to your audience and everything like that, or what your target audience was for this. And
now that you mention it, although Kickstarter is something you do online, I think I can attribute some of the success of the project, or of the Kickstarter specifically, to actually having boots on the ground. That especially at shows and prepping beforehand, collecting emails, talking to people, staying up all night at MagFest and having one-on-one conversations, it definitely did make a difference. I can actually say that pretty confidently because I remember walking out of MagFest with it had to be over 1,000 email list signups and being wow, that's going to be significant. And it was. I remember blasting out and having, a lot of people who were on the list. So it helped a lot. Yeah. Relationships matter for sure. It's tough to tell with consumers.
Well, of course, because they can vote, but at the end of the day, what really counts is them voting with their wallets.
Yes. Yeah. That's the tricky thing, right? Yeah, they have to like your game enough to put money down, and that's a very scary concept.
Yeah, especially when they can't get a tangible thing at that moment in time. So.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you can get sort of close playing a demo or something at a show, but you're still not getting the full experience. You're really playing something at the time it must have been alpha of the second iteration or something of the game. We've remade the game multiple times.
Nice. All right. So we talked about a lot. What were some lessons that you learned from the marketing of Bacon Man? I mean, we talked a lot about what you learned during that, but how about after the campaign? I mean, once everything kind of the dust settled and stuff, what was your takeaway from that experience and how it kind of paved the road for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess the thing that I took away from it was that Kickstarter, for the amount that we were asking for, which I think was $20,000, we might have made 21 and change. That's not a substantial amount of money, right, especially for game development. Our intention was really to use Kickstarter as a way to get some laptops, pay some musicians, and give ourselves a very small safety net. Because at the time we were really doing a lot of Unreal Engine sort of forum work and things like that to keep afloat. I think that Kickstarter does not have to be a financial means to an end, but instead can be used as a strategic play for trying to achieve other goals. So, for example, if your goal is get a lot of press in a short period of time, that might be something to consider. If another is assuming that the game can get the press, a lot of places don't cover Kickstarter anymore. 2014 they did, but now there's a lot of policies that people don't.